Hey, what's up, guitar nerds? How you guys doing? I got dueling beverages here. Smoothie, strong coffee. Sorry I'm a little late today. I'd hoped to be here by 11:40 and live or something, but I ran into some technical issues. And then I iron out a few problems. So just tell me if you can hear the voice okay, because it had to do with a plugin that I use on the microphone. And it should be working fine, I think. But yeah, I got it all sorted out and stuff and found a little workaround. I'm back. I'm back in town. Los Angeles. Wow. Working on videos and stuff. And having a good time. I'm happy to be here. I've managed to avoid most of the jet lag. Sounds good, not as bassy as usual, says Scott. I did put a low cut on it because I normally I have this plugin that I use that I probably have a little EQ going on it and stuff, and the plugin I couldn't use it today, so for various reasons. So I just pulled up another one and I did hit the low cut on it, added some gain and some compression, and here we are. So hopefully it should work fine, I think. Yeah. Sounds good, not as bassy, says Scott. Voice audio good, says Fareed. Well, great to have all you guys here. Steven says that he bought a Fryette PS100 this morning from a local guy, and he came to find out he's a regular Sunday Live guy. I was talking with somebody this week about my PS100, and I guess that it's kind of hard these days to find good... because it uses 6550s, you know, big bottle tubes. So if you've got a PS100 and you've got a line on any, you know, tube dealers or anything you want to find, you should probably find a couple pairs of those because they're just tough to source these days. The particular, you know, I think it's kind of designed for 6550 or KT88, probably the Sovtek or Svetlana ones or whatever. Anyway, just kind of hard to find. So it's just something of note. If you can track down a pair or two, it might be a good idea. Doug is in Edmonton. What's up, man? How are you, homie? What's happening up there? Chris Quinn says Thornbucker versus Burstbucker. Fight to the death. I like it. Fight. Let them fight. Do you like CC DeVille? What do you think of John 5 and Motley Crue? I don't know anything about CC. I do remember... I had a girlfriend many years ago that used to manage a bar called The Garage in LA, which was a really cool punk rock bar. It was just a dive, punk rock dive. It's still a bar of some sort. It's basically like where Sunset Junction is, where like Santa Monica and Sunset Boulevard kind of meet in Silver Lake. And anyway, CC would play in The Garage sometimes with his solo thing. This is like 1998, something like that. And she said he was really... I'd never met him. I think I saw him playing there. It's a long time, so I don't remember. But I never met him. But she used to talk to him quite a bit because she was a bar manager and stuff. And she said he was really sweet and that he's got this thick accent, you know. I think he's from Brooklyn or something. And he'd say, wow, I never appreciated the singer, you know, in my band. Like, but now that I'm doing... Because he was singing lead in this. And he'd be like... I just remember imitating him going, singing lead is really hard. You know, and he sounded like a sweet guy, like he was fronting the trio and everything, and doing his thing. So anyway, there's that story. My only CC DeVille story. Guitars for your project. Oh, what do I think about John in Motley? I think that's great. I mean, he's like, it seems like a natural, you know, like for that. He looks like he fits in. He's a great guitar player. He can, I'm sure. You know, it's cool guitar parts, but they're not technically difficult, I don't think. So he's kind of a technical guy. He can probably play it in his sleep. And they're out there having fun playing rock. So good. Congratulations, John, on a good gig. Jetting around the world on the Motley, the Deaf Crew jet to play rock for the masses. Guitars for your project with a super chat. When you use your quad cortex with power stage and cab, can you explain how to route the front of house with IRs and the bypassed IRs for your onstage? Sure. I mean, it's really easy to create a split within the quad cortex and have at some point, you've got your chain with your pedals and your amp or whatever, and then after that, you can create a split to go down to the second row and even to the third row and fourth row. You can do, there's multiple different ways to do this, but the easiest way is just to create a split path then, and one path goes to, let's say it's in the top row, and you'll set the output to 1, 2 for the top row, and after the split in that top row, you'll put an IR block. Okay, so now outputs 1, 2 have an IR block in them, and those just feed the front of house, and that's the 2 XLR outs. Now, where that split happens, because it happens before the cab sim, you can go down to the second row and just have that go straight out and set the output in that second row to be 3, 4. And then the 2 1/4-inch outs, you can just feed to a power amp and a cabinet. So that's how you do it. Hopefully that makes sense. There should be some good templates out there, or good, I'm sure you could find different ways to do it, but it's just that split routing kind of thing where you can have the different outputs, one with IRs and one without. Hopefully that's helpful. When using, good questions here, lots of questions popping up. When using modelers, any tips for avoiding that strange crackle or clipping you can sometimes get? Modelers in a computer? If you're using them if you're using plugins, you can get crackle and clipping sort of sounds, and it'll be your processor kind of hitting the limit and crapping out a little bit. That's something that can only be alleviated by upping the buffer in your DAW or on your computer. Crackle or clipping, if it's on like a Helix or a Kemper or something, I don't know what that. It could be a different thing. Maybe you have to be careful sometimes with how hard you're hitting the out. Yeah, every device has a like a Helix or anything. They'll all have a limit where they're gonna like you're gonna run into clipping if you boost, say a clean boost or a volume boost at the end of a chain or something like that, and you've got it boosted way up for some reason, and you're coming out of the outputs to go to whatever you're monitoring through speakers. Well, there's an analog, or there's a digital to analog converter there at the end of the chain, right? And that's gonna clip if you hit it too hot. You can do that in an Axe Effects or a Helix or anything, and you'll just be clipping. The Axe Effects has good metering for this. The Helix, unless you guys know something I don't, the meterings, I don't know how you would know, you know what I mean, in a Helix. So but you just be aware of it could be your gain staging, and it could be clipping or crackling due to just running somewhere too hot in the chain. So hopefully that's somewhat helpful there. What are the top 3 things that made you happy with your sound, professional, BS, amateur, skill, or gear-wise? Happy with my sound. Probably getting my hands together, number one. The sound ultimately comes from you. So, making sure that your time is good, and that you've got, a good right hand with, good attack, that your vibrato is good, that you can play in tune. All that kind of stuff is the number one thing that comes to mind. When it comes to the equipment, that's just something that's different for everybody. Developing your own taste when it comes to gear and getting your head around what makes things sound good. I had some good mentors. I used to hang around with good guitar players that taught me the difference between, like, when I was 16 years old, I was learning about greenbacks versus G12H30s, and why a high watt cabinet sounded different than a Marshall cabinet, and all these things were kind of being shown to me, and I preamp gain versus pedals, and I was learning. So it's just I don't know if there's a second thing, but I guess it's just gaining the education to find out what you like. And that can only come with just time and experience, You know what I mean? Like good mentors and teaching you, and you're like, that sounds really good to me. What sounds good to you when you're 14 or 15, If you're obsessed with guitar, that's Angus Young or whatever. Like, it sounds great, but I don't know how to get there. And then, like, having somebody sort of show you, like, that does know. So I guess that was it. Was good mentors actually probably sort of teaching me how to get to places that I wanted to get to. And the third thing, if I had to pick 3, I don't know. Just being learning to work with what I had, I guess, would be number three. Bringing the most out of like the stuff I had at the time. For instance, I played some gigs on my Marshall MOSFET 100 and with whatever guitar I had at the time, and I would work with that amp to get the most out of it that I could. Or my next rigs, like work with whatever I had. I mean, I remember like even when I was starting to get into professional sideman stuff and getting sort of better and better gigs, and like around 99 or 2000, and I had an audition with Don Henley, and what I went into that audition with was a Marshall DSL 50 head and a 6-space rack that I had made with like 5 or 6 pedals on a drawer, a GCX switcher, and a Rocktron Replifex unit running in the loop of the amp. Not your typical Don Henley rig. Like he even said to me, what is a typical Don Henley rig? I mean, probably a clean amp with some good pedals, but like a Fender. He even said to me, "You got any Fender amps?" I always remember that. I was like, well, this is kind of my amp, because it really was sort of like I only had like 1 or 2 amps back then. So, but it sounded good, DSL 50 is a workable amp with a decent, the channel 1 worked great for his music, and hitting it with a couple pedals, and it sounded fine. It's a good clean, basic clean sound. So making that work and not crashing and burning in an audition like that, like learning how to dial it in, that's kind of the Tom Morello approach, I think, like wringing the most out of whatever you've got, So I guess the 3 things were getting your hands together. Number 2, having good mentors to show you where you want to get to, if you don't know how to get there. And number 3 was using the stuff you've got to the max. Some super chats to get to here already, but I'll just grab a few of these because you guys are asking great questions today. Can you talk about the role of MD? Do you MD often or prefer just playing? I have MD'd, yeah. I wouldn't say often these days. It's interesting because the role of MD has changed a lot. These days, MDs are almost like they become almost like the headhunters that find the members of the bands too. There's a at least the way it's kind of working now that I understand is MDs are kind of putting together bands for touring artists these days. At least in the pop world, there's a lot of that goes on in LA with tours based out of here. But the MD will find the musicians many times. That wasn't always the case. But like literally, they're putting out a hey, looking for a guitar player and drummer for fall tour, message me at da 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 da, and it'll be an MD, and they'll put together auditions or select people however they select people, and then their job is to get in there and put together, it can be a lot of different things. This is loose, but it's like their job is to really get the band together. So the artist wants to do this group of songs. They'll work with the artist to say, okay, cool, and do you want to do a show intro? Do you want any interludes? Do you want any... All right, yes, I envision this here, or I'd like to do this kind of thing, and then their job is kind of put that together. And many times, as much as we can rail against it, but it's a fact of life. A lot of stuff is to a click these days. A lot of shows. This is in the pop world anyway. It's has nothing to do with metal or but in the pop world, when you see shows these days, a lot of it is done with there's a playback guy and they're running Ableton Live or something, and there's some sound effects or background vocals or like a show intro or like different things, and they're all created, and they're running on Ableton Live on a computer or something, usually with a redundant system, 2 computers, and so if one goes down, the other one's chasing it and it takes over. And they've literally got like audio interfaces and stuff these days, and whole systems created to do this kind of thing. So with 8 discrete outputs and stuff, and they're sort of made for live playback, and usually with an operator, somebody running it. And so anyway, their job exists and sort of, I should say, like sort of to help put all that together too. So like everything that's going on maybe in Ableton. If there's a show intro, they're putting that together. They're doing different things, and then they're also doing the traditional role of MD, which is to supervise, the music and to make sure that everything sounds good. Oh, in this part, can you do a fill more like that on the drums? Or in this part, do a build. Everybody build, or let's dynamically drop way down here and everybody stop playing or whatever, and that kind of thing. They're essentially, it's almost like live production. They're overseeing all that stuff and just kind of making sure the whole thing sounds good, you know. So they're musically they're helping create a show. Visually, you know, there's then going to be some sort of probably creative person that's like lighting designers and stuff and designing a stage and stuff and any kind of backdrops and all that. And then they'll all get together at some point, the MD, with what they've done with the music and the musicians and the show they put together musically, combine that with the show visually with the people in that department, and they all kind of work together to make that a thing. And then at the end, many times these days, the MD doesn't go on the road. The MD will be off to another MD gig, because obviously that sounds like a big job, right? And it is a big job. You're overseeing this whole thing and trying to put together sort of, you know, musically a beautiful tour, you know, that puts on a, you know, it's a great show, it's an entertaining show, right? I know it might sound a little contrived, but that's how it works these days, at least in pop world. So I'm talking about if you go see a, you know, anything from a Miley Cyrus to you know, that kind of thing, Taylor Swift, you know, these types of gigs, you know, and then pop bands all the way, you know, starting from the beginning. This is the way people are doing things, even when they're still just working their way out of clubs into theaters and opening slots, you know. If they're on a label and they've got something going, this is generally, there's this kind of thought and stuff put into these shows these days, you know. So that's that. Yeah, and then once they go on the road, they might designate somebody in the band as band leader. You know, they're not really the MD, but they sort of function then as the MD on the road. In other words, maybe the artist wants to, then your job would be you're out on tour and the artist wants to add a song to the set. Oh, I want to do this old, or I want to do a cover, you know. Well, now the band leader person sort of takes over, whoever that may be in the band, and their role is to then, you know, hey guys, you know, talk to the rest of the band. We got to get this song together for sound check tomorrow. We're going to rehearse it. So send out an MP3 to everybody or whatever and go, can you just go over it and figure out some parts and we'll dial it in and sound check, you know. There you go. That's it. As far as experience with a less than stellar MD versus a good one, generally speaking, will be very on top of things. The information will be very clear. Musically, everybody knows what's going on. They won't just send out a song list. Here, learn these songs. And then, you know, I like it when an MD sends out like a Dropbox download link for everything. They've gone and they've assembled the 12 or 18 or 24 or however many songs you're supposed to learn. They put them all in a Dropbox with any maybe charts that could be helpful, all the information. Everything's easy for you to go there and reference and download. And just good communication, you know, is a big part of what makes a good MD. You know, just kind of, you know, great back and forth, easy to get in touch with if you've got any problems with the material or any issues, you know. And then a, you know, bad MD would be just kind of, you know, if somebody's not pulling their weight, it's laxatives because there's confusion and you don't know what's going on, you know. Maybe they expect you to go buy all the songs yourself on iTunes or something to learn for someone's tour. That shouldn't be the case, you know, something like that. It should be a thing where it's all very organized and they make it very easy on you. I think my memories of the best MDs that I ever worked with, they were very clear, you know. I remember working with Ricky Minor once, who was the bass player on the Tonight show for a long time and also the band leader and musical director for that. And he also did a lot of gigs in LA where he would MD and put things together. And he didn't hire me a lot, but he hired me for a couple things. He was a little more in R&B world. And I know I wasn't really in that world. I was, you know, a rock player or whatever. But I really liked him, and he was a nice guy, and we got along good. I remember him coming in and saying, "Okay, guys," like at the beginning of a rehearsal, he'd hired me to do a showcase for an artist that was showcasing for a major label, and so it's just a 3-song thing. And he came in and said, "Okay, guys, what we're going to do today, 10 a.m., you know, we're going to, once everybody's gear was set up and everything, so we're going to go over the first song. We're going to talk about any kind of changes, anything like that. Then we're going to take a short coffee break at about, you know, 11:30. And then we're going to come back. We're going to go over the second song, do the same thing, just work it, any changes. Then we're going to break for lunch at 1. And lunch will be for an hour. We're going to come back and hit the third song, go over that, and then we're going to run everything down and see how it all sounds, and then we're going to finish up at about 4:30, hopefully. Sound good, everybody?" And it was just like so, like, you know, it was very like, wow, like super dialed in and no confusion, and he was sort of, you know, very organized and direct, but also soft spoken, just kind of cool. So I liked that. Okay, what else we got here? Your thoughts on the Tone X? I've been thinking about the Tone X this morning because I was reading threads on it on the gear page this morning because I'm a nerd, and before I came in here, I was drinking coffee earlier and reading the gear page. That's delicious. Bananas and peanut butter. Breakfast. I don't know yet because I got to get it plugged in, and I see people having good results with it. I didn't have a completely clear result when I tried it, so I really want to devote a little bit of time this week, if I can, to plugging it in and trying to figure it out. And I'm going to do it in a very simple way, the simplest way I can figure, to try it and see if I can get some the results I can get out of it and stuff. But I haven't had that experience yet. So I've got the pedal here, I've got the interface, and I need to put some time into it. The thing I'm working on right now, just so you all know, and this will be hopefully coming out tomorrow if I can get it done, is this guy. This is the little Laney Ironheart. This is an amp. It's crazy, right? It's actually an amp with a 2-channel preamp built in, channel 1, channel 2, 3-band EQ, simple boost. It's another one of these pedal board amp jobbies. So I'm working on a video for that right now. So I'm going to try and finish that up today. That's what I'm doing right now. It came out a couple days ago. They had wanted me to force to put it out like the day that it came out. I said I'm just back from tour that day, so it's like not going to happen. So coming out a couple days after it's released. But anyways, any recommendations for vintage Gibson bridge and tailpiece replacements? I used a pigtail. It was the last time I bought that was many years ago that I bought a proper aluminum, with the case hardened steel studs and everything, and I actually really like that thing. So I don't think pigtail is out there anymore, but I'm a fan of the what's the locking ones? The Tone Pros. I like Tone Pros stuff a lot, but I don't know if that's vintage enough for you. There's some good brands from Japan, I know. If you're looking, you might want to look at some stuff that they've got coming from over there. I'm not an expert in this, though, to be honest. Like the great, I just remember Pigtail being really good for the tailpiece replacement, being like they were super. The thing I remembered about the Pigtail tailpiece replacements was the case-hardened steel screws that they came with. And when you replace the inserts with their inserts and then the screws that go into the insert, they were so much less slop than the ones on the stock Gibson. They were tight and they just felt engineered and so the positive contact between the screw that for the tailpiece going into the stud that's in the body was like really good, whereas in the Gibsons there was play and they felt a little wobbly and stuff, and I think they were brass inserts and studs, and as opposed to case hardened steel. So I thought for sure when I put on that tailpiece, it was on an old Gold Top R7 I had, and I thought, this sounds better. I can hear it. I can actually hear a difference. That the whole guitar seemed a little more resonant. It could have just been, we could chalk it up to, you know what I'm saying, a placebo effect or something too. But I thought it sounded better. I did. Did you ever change the tone settings when using one of your captures in the Quad Cortex? A little bit, yeah. Or did you just recapture with different amp and pedal settings? Yeah, I've used different, whatever sounds good, man. If you can get to where you want to go by just tweaking the treble up a little bit or adding a little more gain. Generally on the Quad Cortex, I find the gain, the things that sounded different, they're a little darker and there's a little less gain, generally speaking. A little less drive. And I mean, like, it's enough where you can, just take the gain control and bump it from the center up to like 1 o'clock or 1:30, or, a little more treble. And then it's like, okay, yeah, now we're closer and it's fine. I'm not afraid to, whatever sounds good, if you want to add EQ to it and go for it, or if you feel like it's pretty far off from what you need, go ahead and just recapture it. The Quad is so easy to do the captures on that it's like not a big deal, it's just another 10 minutes or whatever to do another one. Yeah, Lauren says, so there was a bunch of UPS and FedEx boxes waiting for you when you... Yeah, I'm so behind on videos. It's like, I definitely have to get some done. Hey, John, what's up? Look, it's Mr. Sir's in the house. How are you? John, you're the guy to ask. What's a good vintage tailpiece, Gibson, your favorite Tune-o-matic and stuff? I bet you're going to say Tone Pros, because I think, that's the... I don't know if you know of any others, though. And I think you know the story behind... uh, Pigtail and what happened with them. I think maybe the fellow passed away or something. I don't know. I don't want to say that out of turn, but I think there's a lot of years ago that I bought a Pigtail tailpiece. Maybe not. Yeah. Good to see you, John. And I'll probably see you later on, right? I think we're going to go have dinner. Thanks for distracting me from the BS of life for a few. Really enjoying guitar talk with you. Thanks, number 4. I appreciate that. I know I love doing this, you guys. It's always fun. It's good for me, too, to just... I love the questions, and all we think about is guitar for a couple hours and stuff. It's fun. Do you prefer fuzz face or tone bender style fuzz? I like fuzz face, personally. I love the way a fuzz face is kind of... It's a little more dark and smooth, and then when you roll down the volume, it does that beautiful cleanup thing. The tone bender sort of does that too, I think, right? The cleanup, but it's a little more rough and ready, Jimmy Page or whatever, right? The tone bender, but both are cool. I love big muffs too, and I always say my favorite fuzz is the Crazy Tube Circuits Starlight fuzz, which is the one I used on tour most recently, and just sounds like it's just versatile and you get a lot of sounds out of it. But it doesn't do the fuzz face thing. The fuzz face thing, and to some degree a tone bender, I guess, is very special because it's not unlike a Rangemaster where when it's on 10 it's all crazy and doesn't do its thing, and then as soon as you roll down it does this incredible cleanup thing, which is a huge part of the Hendrix clean, I think. That chimey thing where everybody goes and replaces their pickups and goes on a search for years to try and get a certain sound, and there it is in the fuzz face when you just, with your average pickups, when you just roll down the volume and you got a nice good 20-foot cable between you and the fuzz or whatever, and it does that thing where the fuzz and the pickups are and the electronics are one circuit and very dynamic. So yeah, they're so different, really. It's almost like different effects, like a fuzz face and a big muff. Yeah, okay, they both make the guitar go grrr to some degree, but the way you use them and the sounds are as different as Fender and Marshall, to me. They're not the same, so, yeah. John there with a super chat. Thank you, my friends. Just got a 2017 PT signature. That's awesome. I think I just responded to your thread, actually, on the gear page about it, and I posted a picture of me with mine, because I just took my original one on tour. The guitar that served as which actually has John's signature on the headstock, not mine, because it served as the prototype for before I was ever had a signature model. I ordered that guitar from Sir, and I actually had John sign the headstock with silver pen, and that's the one that became the basis for my signature model. But anyway, I took it on the road and used it this past, just these past 3 months, and it was great. I needed a guitar I could tune down to D for a couple songs. And so I had the whole guitar down a whole step, and I needed it with a tremolo. And I thought, well, let's take that guitar. I hadn't used it in a while, and it's like, guitars, they want to be played. So I took it out, and it was super cool. It was so solid every night, even down a whole step. It's just like, I think I put 10s on it instead of 9s just for that one guitar. Yeah, that's what I took for that guitar, 10s. And it was just always in tune, and the trem stays in tune amazing, and just worked perfect. So it was great. Let's see, what else we got here? Let's see. Ryan says, John, sir, pleasure having you here, seeing you with us nerds. We're all nerds. John's a big nerd, too. We're all nerds. Yeah. Must be nice to be back home after a long tour. It is. It feels great. The sun is different here and stuff. I mean, I love England, but it's, you come to California, it's just bright and blue, and it's very green right now from all the rain. I managed to miss all the rain, seemingly. It was insane for a little while, I know, here. But, can't find your HSS signature for sale anywhere. It's happening now. I mean, I asked Justin about, who's our artist fellow at Sir, I asked him, and he said there was some in production, and that was a month or 6 weeks ago. He said there was some, where the bodies and the necks were cut, and they're just waiting for paint and stuff. So they're getting out there right now, and his best guess was kind of like spring. There's going to be, a bunch that should be, maybe not a bunch, but a trickle, at least some getting out there. And so give it another month or so, and we should start seeing them out there in the wild. I'm sure we'll start hearing about, some of them hitting different stores and people finding them. I sure hope so. John. Maybe you can tell us. He's gonna. Whoa, I better get out of here. No, they're coming. They're coming. They're being made. First one's getting out there. So, I'm curious for your take on neck sizes. Your Sir Signature has what I consider thin neck. Well, this is part of why we did a different neck for the newest one. Do I have the guitar here? I don't think it's here in the room. The green Sir I have that we based the neck off of for the new one. Anyway, it's a slightly wider neck. It's as opposed to a 1.650, it's a 1.687, I think, is the width, something like that. And it also has just a little bit of a beefier profile. Now, it's not at all unlike my 64 Strat, which I have right here. This guitar has a little bit of a V down here. It says 64 transitional. You know, it's kind of weird where the logo is and stuff because they were doing wacky stuff at the end of 1964 into the CBS takeover in 65. So a little bit of a V down here, and then just becomes a nice full C all the way up on the neck past, say, the 5th fret. And it's so interesting because the neck that we chose to model for my new signature model is very, very similar. So I just like to say that what we went with on this new one is a very 60s Strat kind of thing. I'll just hold this. Now, on my original signature guitar, the neck was it's called the Even C Slim, I do believe. And I don't really find it that slim, but John told me once, I think, that he designed it when he was at Fender for like as a possible neck for just the American standard Strat. So I don't, is that right, John? I hope I'm not misquoting you, but that's my memory of it, was that it was supposed to be a kind of a modern take on a Strat neck that was just a kind of a comfortable for a lot of different people and sort of just like a modern C. My neck is so red right there. Am I getting a rash? What's going on? That happens sometimes. All right. Let's put this down. So yeah, it was basically, and I don't find it to be like exceptionally small. Like I find it to be just kind of like comfortable. It's just a comfortable neck for me. I don't have like it's not. John's. I remember reading the Even C Slim designation and thinking like, oh, that's probably not going to be right for me. And John suggested it. And he said, well, it's not really that slim. It's just kind of like a nice sort of even C. So I don't know. You have a DG335, which I also own. You consider that a big neck, thin to shred, thick for rhythms. The DG335 neck is quite beefy all the way down, so like some of those Gibson necks, it's got a lot of shoulder, and I found that about it for a number of years. Gibson, a lot of their guitars, including their R7s and R8s and stuff, were just these big like with tons of shoulder. And I never once have I ever played an old Les Paul that had a neck like that. And the DG3035 is kind of like that. It's got a fairly big neck with shoulder, although it seems to be a bit... I have played mid-60s 335s and stuff that have had a neck that's not that wide, but has a lot of roundness to the back, and it's kind of full, And so I thought, well, it sort of feels like some probably 65 or 66 335s I've played, I guess. And it doesn't bother me, but to be honest, you guys, I'm not that picky about, like, I can get used to a lot of different neck shapes and stuff these days, I used to be really picky about that stuff, and now I just kind of take each guitar as it comes, like small necks, wider, thinner, whatever, and figure out what they do best, and then I just use them like that. But anyways, I'm getting long-winded about this, but my idea with the new guitar was to find a neck, because I like I just said, I like a lot of different necks. I can get used to different things. So I thought, well, if people find my original neck shape on my double humbucker signature guitar a little bit small for some of them, I'm cool with trying a bigger neck shape. Let's move to a slightly different one, and we'll just make it a different thing, and we'll make it exclusive to my signature guitar. So it was a green 2008 or 9 Sir Classic that I've had for years that we modeled it off of. It's about a 1.687 width, I think, and 10 to 14 radius and all that, but just has a little bit of a more beef in the back, kind of like a slight V down low, and then kind of just becomes a nice C after that all the way up. And I think it'll be comfortable for a lot of people. Like, I don't think anybody's going to pick it up and go, this is a small neck. you know. And likewise, I don't think it's a big neck either. It's just like really nice. So, all right. Do you prefer the H9 for reverb over the Big Sky? Your board suggests yes. I don't have a lot of experience with the Big Sky, to be honest, but I like Strymon reverbs. I got an H9 first, and then I sort of fell in love with the Earth reverb and the Black Hole, and the Spring sounds great to me in it. I use it a lot. So, you know, it was more just a question of the H9. Maybe I tried that first, and so then that becomes, you know, I've got a Blue Sky, and I've got a Flint, and those have nice reverbs in them. You know, I think they sound really good. I think I'm supposed to do that new, is it called the Cloudburst, the new Strymon? I think I'm supposed to make a video for that. From what I've heard from that, it sounds amazing. So I love Strymon pedals. I think they make great pedals. I love how easy they are to use, and they're programmable ones. I mean, the Mobius is my favorite multi-mod pedal, so I do use that, you know, and a Timeline. I've got a Timeline and a Mobius on there. So it's not out of, like, I'm sure I could get everything I need. You know what the other thing about it is that I needed the reason the H9s ended up on my board, now that I think about it, is because I needed a pitch shifter. So I needed to be able to do harmony stuff. And so it was a no-brainer to put on there and use for that. And it also does nice reverbs. So it was like a little bit more of a, you know, I wasn't going to be able to do that with a Strymon Big Sky. So Teammate says, how does one make contacts with MDs? You know, it's really a lot of things these days. It's honestly just networking, getting into town, going out to shows, meeting people, but also there's a lot on that. You know, if you've got a healthy internet presence, most of the way that younger people are doing it these days with musical directors is you got an Instagram and you're playing stuff on, you know, on the internet or a TikTok or whatever. People are finding you that way, or seeing you on YouTube, seeing you, you know, and because of that, it's your calling card, it's your business card, it's your, you know, putting your best foot forward, and you know, then people will see you. You know, if your video takes off or whatever because you play great and you sound really good, people just end up seeing you. If you happen to be in LA, it's like, you know, these MDs and stuff, they'll just come across your videos, like we all came across Chris Buck or Mateus Asado, or, you know, people putting out great videos on. You just end up seeing them because it ends up in your feed. You know, who's this guy? And then you remember the name, and you put the name to and they go, oh, wait a minute, they live in LA? Oh, and then an MD might, you know, if they're like, that person would be great for something that I'm putting together, and they might just direct message them, you know, that kind of thing. So it just is very sort of, it's a different world these days. Used to be, you know, you kind of had to move to LA and then it was a lot of beating the street and just getting out there and doing, you know, I mean, I used to go to like open mic nights and stuff, you know, and that works too, you know. I think Ed Sheeran used to do that stuff, and then people like Jamie Foxx and like Elton John and stuff like found him, you know, playing, like, he would just play shows and he was amazing, you know. So it's like at what he does, you know, solo acoustic guitar with loopers and stuff, and he's out there doing all this crazy stuff. And I think Jamie Foxx saw him somewhere and was like, man, you want to come in and record some stuff? Like, you're amazing, you know, and had him into the studio, and just happened like that. So it used to be more like that. I mean, people found you, you know, playing out in a city like LA or New York, I guess. John Lyson says, give some guitar love back if you can. That's what we're doing here. We're guitar loving right now. Have you ever tried the latency-free wireless headphones you can get now? No. Are they like super low latency or something, like Bluetooth, or is it over Bluetooth? That was always the problem with Bluetooth. It's like there's latency. So, yeah. Just subscribe. Thank you for being here, my friend. I appreciate that. Thank you. Any idea when Fryat will make more PS100s? I don't know. I don't have any idea, actually. I use mine all the time, though. It is a great device for loading amps and then reamping. Would you choose 2 L cap stand to run in series or tape mode on the Empress Echo system? 2 L cap stand to run in series. I mean, oh, the Echo system. I remember I did a video for that pedal. That was years ago. It's a really cool pedal. There's many ways you can do this. I mean, you might be able to get what you want. It sounds like you want kind of a multi-head thing. I mean, what about using something like the Boss uh, uh, Space Echo pedal, the big one? You know, with two different, because you can get the different taps in it going and stuff. It just depends on what you're trying to do. Not sure exactly the setup or the sound you want to get. Something like a Halo from Keeley might work good for you too. That's a nice way to go with the Andy Timmons. You know, you can do the two delay times cascading into one another and get the Halo thing. We got 367 people online. Nice to have you all here. Favorite Gretsch model? You know, I don't know that much about Gretsch's. It's the one guitar I've never really owned. I would love to have one of these days, though, and it's sort of my intention to get a Brian Setzer. And the reason is because it's kind of the hot rod of the bunch that seems the most sort of stage ready with the pinned bridge and the hot Potter pickups and all the stuff. Just kind of, it's his model seems to be the one, like, where it's like, okay, it's a Gretsch with all the, you know, the issues with Gretsch. I played a Gretsch on stage once and I hit it really hard and I didn't realize the bridge wasn't pinned on those, and it was incredible how out of tune I was all of a sudden as the entire tailpiece shifted on the front of the guitar. You know, it's fine in rehearsal when you're not playing too hard, and then I got a little excited live and nailed a chord and it was like, what is going on? Like, why am I completely out of tune? So that's when I went like, you know, you learn sometimes in a way that smacks you in the face, and that was one of those times. So, yeah, so Brian Setzer, I'd love to get one of those, or a Malcolm Young signature one pickup. Let's go. I wonder, has anybody heard Neo Creambacks and Neo V-type mix in a 412? Not me. I'm not sure what that would be like, but probably be okay. A little like a Greenback and V30 probably mix. Have you ever tried Hughes and Kettner amps like the Deluxe 40? You know, the only exposure I've really had to them was at GitCon, that thing that happened in Germany for a couple of years at the Warwick factory, and Hughes and Kettner was there, and they had some of those in their rooms where they were filming, so you kind of by default played through them. They seemed like pretty good serviceable amps. I didn't really get a, you know, exposure to them and, you know, the different ones and stuff to get a good idea of, you know, but exactly what was going on. JJ says, will the PT50 have built-in MIDI? We're still, you know, talking about the amp and trying to finalize things and stuff and figure out what's going on, so I'm not sure about that. That's a good question. Do you think it should? I wonder. Do you miss it in like the PT15, or do you think it's like, you know, you can use it as a, you know, little, like Sir made their little MIDI box that adds on, and you can add MIDI to any amp that's got a 1/4-inch channel switching jack, you know. Have you ever gigged with the mighty AC30, and if so, what are your thoughts? Yeah, quite a bit. I mean, I used to use them in a number of different bands that I've been in. I've used them as a backline rental, you know, so you show up in AC30 there. I remember when I literally had an Axe Effects that caught fire one night on tour in Europe with, it's a long story, but I probably told you before. I was in the Reeperbahn in Germany in a weird club in Hamburg, and it was sketchy. And the front of house console caught fire, like literally a guy like with a fire extinguisher spraying into the front of house console. And DC shot down the line all the way to the stage, and because I was connected via XLRs, and the old first generation Axe Effects didn't have any protection for that evidently, and my Axe Effects was smoking. That was the end of that Axe Effects. And so I didn't have an Axe Effects for the next gig. The nice folks at their distributor got me one, I will say, 48 hours later, and I continued on the tour. But anyway, for that night I had to use just an amp, and I used an AC30 that was a rental, and it worked fine. It was great. It's actually like, yeah, this is cool, you know. But beyond that, my main amp for a few years was a Top Hat King Royale, which is basically his AC30, and I loved it. And you know, this amp right here is the same amp, and that's kind of my AC30 now in here. So that said, I'd love to get a you know, a real old great one. Got a line on one actually, and I might look into it, but. It's like a 63 head. And that could be cool for me. So, although I'd also just love a combo with great original speakers, you know, the silvers, someday. Is a big part of the sound. So, just watch a video of Phil X playing Somebody Get Me a Doctor. I saw that same video this morning. See, this is how it happens. It goes out on the internet, and we all see it. With Michael Anthony. Good Lord, have you ever gotten a jam with Michael? I've never jammed with Michael. I've met Michael, and he was a very nice cat, but I haven't jammed with him. He seems so healthy these days, you know, Michael, like vibrant and just doing good and having fun, and you know, it's great to see. So he's aged gracefully. Have I ever tried Maris pedals? I know, but I have a reverb here, the Mercury 7, I believe it's called, in my rack, a one rack space mono version of the Mercury 7 that in a 500 series module, and I really like it. I mean, it sounds amazing. I would love to try the pedal at some point, but I haven't. And I know it's actually Yvette Young's choice for a reverb pedal. It's the Mercury 7. It was inspired by Blade Runner, I do believe. Those huge, long ambient textures, you know, beautiful cinematic kind of dark, you know, and that was the inspiration for the Mercury 7. So anyways, I would love to try that. What's the most important trait for being a professional musician? The most important trait. I always remember seeing a thing with Mix Magazine put on a thing with Crystal Algae and Bob Clearmountain, where they asked them questions. It was like a panel, you know, and an audience, and somebody from Mix was asking the questions. And anyway, when I won't tell the whole story, but when they got to Crystal Algae, it was really funny because they said, like, what's the top 3 things that have helped you in your career, your character traits, like top 3 character traits that have contributed to your success. And he says, you know what number 3 is? Confidence. Number 2, confidence. Number 1, confidence. And I always remember that. He's a character, but there's a lot of truth to that. Confidence, being, you know. And so how do you get confident? Well, you prepare. You over-prepare. And people like confidence. It's true. So being a professional musician, you're going to be in those situations where other people are counting on you, you know, sideman gig, or you come in the studio, you know, they want you to come up with a great part, or, you know, when you're walking out on stage next to an artist, and they're all similar. They've all got a lot of you have to have a lot of confidence to be a lead singer or whatever, but there's also an insecurity there, because what if things go wrong, right? And everybody has that. It's a human trait. So often they look to other people for, you know, you like, you know, if people have got their backs. That's a big part of being a sideman. You've got their back. You're going to go out there and, you know, if they're not feeling 100% that night, the show's still going to be great because you're stepping up and, you know, playing great and putting on a good show. So confidence, I guess, is a huge one. I always say, too, being a nice person, you know, that's the number one. Being the kind of person that people want to play with. Because beyond the confidence and beyond, you have to be a good player. So let's just get that out of the way. Like, it's like with anything. Well, what's the most important trait for being oops, sorry, I hit the mic. What's the most important point for being a professional plumber or roofer? Or, well, you have to know how to be a plumber. You have to know how to do roofing. You have to know the skill. Let's just get that out of the way. That has nothing to do with beyond, okay, you have to be able to do the job, you know. That's just a given, right? But beyond that, what comes next? What separates one from another? Let's say everybody's got the skill set, you know, out of 50 guys or girls, you know, everybody's got the skill set. What's going to separate you and you know, from the pack and stuff? And I guess probably the two main, I would say it's two things. One would be confidence, and the other one would be just being a good person, the kind of person that people want to be around, you know. Be the kind of person that other people go, yeah, I'd love to, you know, that they're a pleasure, you know, to hang out with and to be on a bus with for a year or whatever, because that's the main thing. I mean, I just got off a bus with, you know, I don't know how many, 17 or 18 of us. It's a big bus, a big double-decker, you know, in England. But yeah, I think it was 17 or 18 of us. And to be on a bus with that many people for a few months is, you better be a good you can't be a complainer or you can complain a little bit, but it's like you have to do it good naturedly. And when you're having a bad day or when somebody else is like being able to read the room is so important, like don't put your stuff on other people and recognize that everybody's going through stuff and all that. And it's a big part of it. So, John's saying there's a respiratory cold out there. I've had more employees down than during COVID, 2 weeks in nasty. I had it. Yeah, I had, that's why I'm still coughing. I literally had this, I think you guys saw me when I was out there and sick and stuff. I played 3 shows with like 101-degree fever and it was gnarly, like that thing, and I still, when I get a cough these days, it doesn't go away for like, it lingers, so I haven't been sick for like a month and a bit, but I still cough every now and then. What power device would be best to connect neural plugins on Mac to a cabinet? Duncan Power Stage, Fry-Up Power Station. Well, those are very different because with the Power Stage, it's very simple, solid state. Fry-Up Power Station is a much more sort of, it's heavier, it's tube, it's a lot, but both will work actually into the line input. It just depends what you want. I don't know because I haven't to tell you exactly. I would have to try it, but yeah, you'd have to take your laptop, disconnect the, I should say bypass the cabinet simulation and all that, and then just come out of a line out on your interface into those power amps and give it a go. I've seen people do it. And the BrainWorks plugins too. They always test them like that. A being the real amp into a cabinet. You going through a power amp, like literally out of a laptop, and then with the real amp sitting there. It's kind of interesting. But yeah, you could go either way. Both will work. I don't know which one, better. It's like one's simpler and probably more reliable. The solid state simple thing, but does it going to sound as good? Maybe it'll sound fine. Maybe you don't need the, but you're still plugging that power amp into those speakers, and so there's still the relationship between however that power amp reacts with a cabinet that is going to be, so you're definitely going to get more of a tube thing with the tube amp, So I really feel like one of the things that there isn't enough of on the market these days is good power amps to do things like this with, that are simple and maybe not tube. And I feel like there's all these products out now. Here's one right here that's like this has a built-in power amp, but this is a pedal that has a built-in power amp. And would it sound different if you just used the preamp of it and went into it? Because there's a lot of things that are like this too that are preamps, right? Pedal preamps. I'm looking around my room like I'm just going to see one, but I've got a couple of the pedal amp things sitting right here. I've got the Duncan Power Stage sitting right back there. There's a lot of these devices around right now, right? And I just feel like there needs to be more portable power amps to reamp and do things with. It's a product. There's a hole in the market. There's not enough of them out there. The Duncan is one of the only ones that you can find. That's like a little, and I think they make a stereo version. They do, but there should be mono and stereo versions of these things that are easy for people to integrate into their pedal board rigs and their, in case they want to run any cabinets and stuff. So, take note, folks. Top Hat and Plexador, how often do you use it? Not that often, but it's great. I still have mine. What itch does it scratch that your other amps don't? I have redundant Marshall kind of amps. That's the thing. So that's why I don't use it that much. I've got my signature PT100, which is right there. It's very similar. My Marshall, my SL68. I've got a lot of amps that do the Marshall thing now, so it's one extra. But I also, by the same token, I don't want to sell it because it's cool. It's just a good 50-watt plexi that also has a gain mod in it that you can do stuff with. It's also got a switchable bright cap in it, so that's nice. You can switch that out, and it has a sort of JTM 45 to more lead spec switch in it too that works pretty well to get different tones. So I'm a hoarder. What can I say? Have you plugged into Buddha amps? Not really, actually. I don't know that much about them, to be honest. So, yeah. Let's see. God, I'm far behind in the chat, aren't I? Because you guys are talking about the Tone X here, and that was a half an hour ago at least we were discussing that. But have yet to see a proper comprehensive video on the capture aspect and using Tone X on a live board. Yeah. I'll get into it this week and try and see. I really want to try and make the best captures. I feel like I need to do it with Michael Nielsen or something, like, because his video is really good on it. He seemed to get some good results, so I need to make sure I'm doing it right. What do you think about the new Headrush Prime? I haven't even had time to research that, to be honest, but they did contact me, and I believe they want me to make a video. So, and I like those folks, so I would be happy to do that. We'll see what happens with that this week. If they get one to me and I get into it, because I've done videos for their previous Headrush products, the little guy, the big one, the original. Like I've done 3 of them, I think. So, yeah. Well, I'm gonna page down in the chat here. John says the Tone Pros has the steel inserts as well on the Aura. Yeah, we were talking about bridges and tailpieces for Les Pauls and what were some of our favorites. And I asked John, and he used the Tone Pros on the Aura. So right there, that's a pretty good endorsement, because that was, you know, his ultimate version of our favorite guitars from Kalamazoo. Yeah. Can you get into phase issues when using a stereo power amp like a Mesa 290? I mean, not if you're just using it like both sides in stereo, like it was probably mostly intended to be used. Shouldn't be any phase issues with it, I wouldn't think. You know, the only time you would run into phase issues is if for some reason you delayed one side with a, you know, if you were using one side to power a preamp and another side to power, say, an Axe-Fx, right, into 2 sides of the power amp, and then you were running them both into a cabinet or something, the Axe-Fx will be out of phase with the other one because of the A to D conversion. So there's scenarios where, but it wouldn't really be the fault of the power amp. It would be the other devices. Let's see. Super chat there. Thanks very much. I'm getting into the 500 series world. I have a Crown Board 500 R8 that I need to fill 6 more spaces with modules. That's the only thing with getting 500 series racks, is you want to load them up. There's a hole in it. I have space. Like I have 1 space in mind. What am I going to get? I need to spend money. Would you recommend? What would you recommend for both recording and mixing? Well, one of my favorite modules is the Maris mic preamp, which is, I can't remember the name of it, but I think it's called the 440, I think. And it's a API style mic preamp design, good sounding mic preamp, but it has a pedal level effect loop on it. And what's neat about that is that you can integrate pedals into your recording chain. Or I suppose you could use, you know, you could reamp through it and, you know, run into it. And then in the mix, you could use pedals. So say you want to add an MXR Electric Mistress to a vocal, you know, pretty cool. You could do that. Or a fuzz on a, you know, a cool pedal that you've got that you want to use on a vocal or something, you know, or on a snare drum or on an acoustic guitar or something that normally you wouldn't be able to add pedals to. So look at the Maris 440 Pre. It's really cool. It adds an extra layer of cool to a mic preamp. Other than that, I mean, I've got a DBX 160 compressor that I like that's in the 560A. It's a, I guess it's not a 160, but it's the 5 series version of a 160A. So it's the 560A. But anyway, that's nice to have for bass or for, you know, if you're tracking and, or, you know, probably certain drum sounds and stuff like that. You just need a good DBX, just straight up that style of compression. Let's see here. I just got a BA 1073 MP. I think you have the 1U stereo pair version. Do you ever run your mix bus for analog flavor? Not really. You know, the type of work I'm doing here, I tend to, I do everything in the box. It's just, I don't feel like it's, you know, that it gets a little esoteric and stuff, and a little audiophile and a little, you know, doing stuff like that. Not that it's not cool, you know, but it's just like, I'm literally recording and mixing things in a day or two, and then getting them out and moving on to the next project and stuff. So anytime you introduce things like that, it's like, you know, and I always wonder, like, the plugins are so good these days for coloration and analog stuff. Like, for instance, if I mix in Luna, which is the UA DAW, they've got the analog summing and tape sim, excuse me, on every single channel. When I use that, it sounds gooey and analog and like really good, and it's all modeled really well. It's like I could just do that. I could just run it through Luna and get a little bit of that color and do it all in the box, and it's easy. I mean, I just have never gotten that deep into, like, you know, analog summing or bussing out through. The other thing is you of course go through another A to D conversion. Then I always wonder, well, is that bad? Like, you know, because you got to then go back into the computer out of the analog, and so you're, you know, if you got great converters, maybe not, but you are doing it again. It's like, is that adding a layer of, you know, like, is the juice worth the squeeze sort of thing, right? So, uh, yeah. Yeah. And I answered this one already. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. What else we got here? Have I heard the new Mammoth song? I heard the one Mammoth tune that came out, and it sounded really cool. Great guitar solo. That ripping solo that's just made for playing live. It's really great, guys. I'm so far behind that I'm move way down in the chat here. So please feel free to ask again if you've asked a question. I'm missing it because I'm going to miss a bunch here. I'm so far behind. John Zucker says, speaking of your original signature guitar, how do you think the new Thornbucker 2 in the bridge would pair with the original neck pickup? Great. I mean, it's not that, you know, we're not talking about worlds different here. It's just a slightly hotter pickup with a different magnet. So I really love the new pickup. I think it's a terrific sounding pickup. You know, it's going to be a little, because of the wind being a little hotter, and then also the Alnico 2, I find them to be a little softer sounding on the top end. So if you've got a bright guitar, or you feel like, yeah, I could tend to, you know, I wouldn't mind a little bit of a darker tone, a little bit of a, it's not even darker, it's just like a little, like, more rounded on the top or something. Great for gain. So yeah, I doubt you'd notice a world of difference. You know, it would just be a slightly different sound, a little bit different take, and it should work just fine. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's see. Ziegert says, I love Strymon, the Big Sky Volante, Iridium, all great, but just got a Merix LVX delay. My mind is blowing. Yeah, they're really good. Merix is, yeah, founded by the guy who originally founded Strymon, which makes sense. They're both great. They both make great stuff. I would like to do more with Merix, actually, if somebody out there knows them, if they want to, would want to work with me on a video or anything. It's good stuff. Jewel used to come to my friend's open mic in Colorado. Jewel, from, you know, I toured with her in 2006 and got to know her a little bit, and I really like her. And one thing I realized was that she's almost better, not that she's not great with the band, she's great with the band, but she's almost better doing the solo performer open mic vibe. I went to see her do a show actually by herself, and I got it finally. I was like, oh, because she can stop, tell stories, lengthen a verse, change the tempo. Like, she's almost too tied down with a band to an arrangement, you know. And she's great on her own, and you could tell that she, you know, did a lot of open mics and solo gigs and kind of excels in that environment. And that's a singer-songwriter kind of you know, vibe that she definitely just, you know, flourishes in those situations. So what do I think about some YouTubers saying amp modeling is dead because of amp capturing? You know, it's like, for those of us out there that just kind of want to get work done, these kinds of discussions are kind of like, it's like, if somebody's getting a great result out of an amp modeler, like Metallica, you know, they've probably got their rigs all dialed in. They use what they use. I mean, they're probably not going to change. Like, or, you know, I'm talking about with the Axe effects, right? It's just like it's like saying tube amps are dead because modelers are out there, or this is dead because of that. It's like, if somebody's happy with what they're using, or they're getting a great sound out of it, you know, I think a lot of those discussions are just people you know, with an opinion about something they like, and then they say, oh, well, this is going to take over just because it's obvious, because look, I get a great sound out of it. You know, it's not based in any kind of like reality, you know. I mean, I was at a show last night, and the guitar player used a Helix, so it doesn't do, yeah, and it sounded great, by the way. I went up and looked at the rig on stage and stuff. So it's just a Helix with, you know, it's a female guitar player. She sounded really good. She was playing like a ES339, I think, all night. That one guitar got a ton of sounds. The patches sounded really great. And I knew she was using some sort of modeler, but it was a Helix. And if people get a good sound out of a Helix, then great, you know, if it serves the gig. And that's the thing, is a Helix is like with the built-in expression pedal and everything, there's a lot to like, you know. It's there for a working guitar player that just wants to go up, plug in, get a great sound, get the job done. It's all in one. I mean, so a guitar player like that's probably like, who cares about capturing or you know, that kind of thing, you know. Because me, I really like capturing because it's like I've got nice amps, you know. But this guitar player, she was young. It's like she's not going to have like a bunch of amps and stuff to capture. She just wants to go get work done and go on the road, you know. So I don't know. There's room for all this stuff these days, you know, I think. And, you know, they'll probably, you know, the writing's on the wall with that kind of stuff. It's a feature that people like, whatever version, whether it's a software revision or a new product altogether, you know, Line 6 is going to come out with that. You know, they'll have their own version of, it's only a matter of time. I mean, now Headrush has done it, I think, right, with this new thing that they've got, Headrush Prime. So, oh, don't forget Super Chat, says Richard. Missed mine and another, did I? Okay, I'm going to head back and try and find those. I thought I'd... Okay, I got to that one. Let's go over a couple here. There's Richard. There was this one. That was the last one I've seen all these, but maybe some of them aren't coming through. Hard to say. There's John's. Chip. I've hit all these, all the ones I'm seeing, so I'm just taking a look at them all here. Sorry guys for the little. I don't want anybody to be shortchanged though. I'm not seeing any other ones in my feed. So if there is some, you can just ask in the normal. I'll head down to the bottom of the chat here, and you can just ask in the normal feed, and I'll go all the way to the bottom here. And because, yeah, I'm just not seeing them. I see this one from Sam here. What speaker would you pair with an EVM 12L? I mean, that's such a kind of a... I don't know anybody that uses mixes of EVs with other speakers, to be honest. I've never heard of that, so it would be a different kind of rig. I don't know that much about EVs, although I've experimented with them a little bit doing that Van Halen video. I don't know what the efficiency is. My guess is they're probably pretty efficient. So I don't know how they would pair with a Celestion or something. But your mileage may... I mean, I guess I paired it with a Celestion in that video, but I didn't listen for how loud each one was, you know, in the cabinet. I just put them in the other room and mic them. So whether or not they'll blend right... Oh, sorry, that was a JBL. That wasn't an EV. That was that was the Eddie D120 thing. So an EV I've never paired with anything and tried. That said, there's EVs here, and I want to make a video about the 12L and using it. We've got a vintage one. We've also got a new Zakk Wylde version, which supposedly is maybe the closest to an original, you know, the one that everybody liked. So I want to make a video of putting those in a cabinet and actually using them with gain amps like Marshall style amps, because that was the sound of a lot of 80s hard rock. Folks like Jake E. Lee, Zakk Wylde, he was one that did it too. Different folks, a lot of them used those EVs in the 80s with Marshalls, and it was a sound. So I just want to try it because it's so different. Yeah, you know, because that's kind of my thing. You know. All right. It's cool you have a signature amp and guitar. Just wondering when you'll have a signature pedal or multi-effects unit. I've talked about it over the years numerous times, especially pedals. I was approached recently to do one, but I think I'm going to wait for it's like the right thing. I mean, I've even been deep into the design of a couple different ones, and then they just haven't happened for one reason or another. I don't just want to have like an overdrive pedal or something, though. I want to make sure it's something that I really dig, and you know, that it's somehow feature, you know, like you see with the PT-15, the feature set and everything, how it's like really its own, you know, like we were the first to come out with something with a true reactive load that sounded great and had the IRs built in and all that. I want to do that stuff if I'm going to do a pedal. It's got to be like really, like this thing is great for musicians. Like it's got a real, you know, that said, I mean, I guess I could just do a drive pedal or something, you know, and that would be easy. But there's so many of them out there and stuff. I would rather do something that's unique and, yeah, so. You know, a value added. Yeah. Lauren says, see all the important traits of being a professional musician in the Pete Thorn video series, so you want to be a pro musician. Yeah, I do have a video. That is true. I do have a video series about, you know, auditioning, how to do a great audition, you know, that kind of thing, how to learn material really quickly or accurately and quickly. How I tackle that. You know, the #1 video is called "Don't Be an A-hole," you know, because I thought that's kind of, you know, maybe the most important thing. And yeah. So once again, I'm pretty far back in the chat here, and maybe that's why I've missed super chats because I'm so far behind. Guitars for your project: quad Cortex to front of house and FR on stage for you versus solid state power amp and real cab. I mean, I far prefer having a real cab on stage to not. Far prefer, just because that's the way I'd like to hear a guitar coming out of a guitar cabinet. I don't like the direct thing that much, even though I know a lot of people do it these days, and it's necessary in some gigs, and I've done entire tours where I haven't had a cabinet on stage, and I'm fine with that for certain gigs. Totally cool. What do I prefer, though? I love having a cabinet. I mean, I just love it. So, but, you know, when you say quad Cortex to front of house and FR on stage, I go quad Cortex to front of house and use a guitar cabinet on stage. You know, you can do it both ways, but I just prefer having a guitar speaker up there, even if it's a 112. You know, I don't mind having a 112 behind me and then a little bit coming out of a wedge, too. That's cool. But yeah. All right. Hope you're getting the itch to record some new music. Yeah, I am, actually. So I got to figure out a way to, it's just, you know, it's just my own, you're your own worst enemy, you know, like trying to schedule it and stuff and figure it out and just setting aside the time. But I really want to do it. And the way I want to do new music this time, I've got a number of drummer friends that are very close to here where I am and have studios. And I literally want to go to somebody's place and just track for a day and a half or something and do a bunch of drum and guitar tracks, you know, 9 or something. And then I'll do 1 instrumental piece or something with no drums. But if I could get like 9 basics done over a couple days, with some scratch guitars or maybe keeper rhythm guitars and stuff, and or maybe even live performances, maybe, you know, and bass too, maybe at the same time. Like, wouldn't that be cool? Just knock it out. I got influenced by the way I see Joe Bonamassa record, actually, because like when, you know, I'll take 2 years to do a record or more, you know, because I'm working on it over time, doing overdubs, and you know, it just gets stretched out, right? Joe will post on Instagram on a Monday and say, starting the new record today, here we go, you know, and he's like loading into some studio and, you know, getting ready to go. And on Thursday, he'll post, you know, all done. Like tracked and probably not mixed, but at least tracked in 4 days, you know, and it's like, he's a blues artist, but it's like, that's cool. Like wow, okay, minimal overdubs, lots of live performances, probably just, you know, got the arrangements worked out in advance, and you just get it done in like 3-4 days. So that's what I want to do. Like maybe give myself a week, you know, do drums and bass in a day or 2, and then spend the next 4 or 5 or 6, whatever, overdubbing, and just getting everything cleaned up, and then mix it, and there it is, you know. But then probably release it a tune at a time over a period of time, you know. Do that whole thing, because I think that's way smarter these days than just putting out a record and it disappears in 2 weeks because everybody's got a short ass attention span. Yeah. I think John's still here. What's up, John? What are you guys doing? Power amp for this new world. I just need to package it. Exactly, my friend. We have to do it. Gotta get something out there. or you've got to do it, but I'm happy to do it with you, or however it happens. Have you tried the Myasnikov guitar preamps? No, I know he does kind of copies of SLOs and different things, different, super lead. I think he's got a 3+ style, but I haven't checked him out. Yeah. Okay. Do I think the Class D amps in the Seymour Duncan and the Blackstar Amp 2 sound as good as Class A, B style Fryettes? Class D is smaller for sure. I haven't done a direct A/B. I've got that Amped 1 unit, and I would like to try doing, I guess I've got the Amped 2 right here as well. They've got their power amp modeling in it, and I would like to try that maybe against, tube power amp and see how close it is. It's just not something I've done yet, because it certainly is smaller and more convenient. A lot of these devices it depends on what you're reamping, It's like if you're reamping something that's already got a tube characteristic built into it, an output tube sort of component, built into, whatever the preamp thing that you're using is. For instance, if you do a capture of a Marshall or something in a quad Cortex, you've baked in some degree of, the power amp saturation, coloration. So how much more of that do you want to add? That's always the question, But there's a lot to this stuff, and John Thorn and I have talked a lot about this stuff, power amp designs, the what happens with solid state power amps, traditional solid state power amps, and they're not all created equal, that's for sure. The Class D thing is one thing. Class D always sounds a little hard to me, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you guys know what I mean, but there's this hardness to the sound where it's very like, and maybe in the Blackstar stuff with the power amp sims and stuff, they've alleviated that to some degree, but I have never tried their power amp yet. I still have to do this with, like, I've got a good tube power amp back here. I can try that and then try the same preamp into the Blackstar unit and set it to 6L6 or whatever and see how close it is and see if it feels right and the same and all that. It's something these are things that I want to spend some time doing around here, and that would probably make interesting YouTube videos, right? Tube power amp compared to the power amp in the Blackstar, super geeky stuff like I get into sometimes when I have time. I also have to finish a video for this. I'm sorry to the gentleman that sent me this, but I haven't yet. But this week, the fart pedal. I think I showed it on the show when it first showed up. I promise him I'll make another video for him, though, and I will. I'm going to try and actually do like a track with it, maybe 30 seconds. A 30-second track with the fart pedal, with drums and the whole 9 yards. That will be my contribution. Yeah. Okay. Is a power amp necessary for an Axe effects in a home studio? Don't need stage volume. Not really if you've got powered monitors. I mean, you're probably like I'm using my Atom monitors here. They're powered, so you don't need anything. You're just listening to it through the powered speakers. Or if you've got traditional studio monitors with a power amp, then you need a power amp. But I guess that's for your studio monitors. So, do you notice a tone difference between bent and block saddles on Strats, or is it just a comfort issue? I do. There seems to be more. I hear more like on a block saddle. I hear more of a solid fundamental, and on a bent saddle, I hear more of airy overtone. What do you think, John? Am I crazy? But that's what it sounds like to me, like a little bit more airy thing or something. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe it's just a little less fundamental, whereas on a block saddle, it seems to be a little bit more the tone of the fundamental. I don't know. If I had to describe it, that's what I would say. Could be crazy, but yeah. What time is it? 1:20. Well, I started late, so I'm going to go for another while. Because, yeah, I was starting late due to some technical issues, and so I owe the chat some time. Digitech Freakout, have you used it live? I use it all the time. I used it on my last tour. I would do a solo on, we did a version of Another Brick in the Wall, and at the end I would play a solo a la the Pulse version. And right towards the outro, I would use it all the time to grab and get a harmonic coming in and stuff. Long, kind of held harmonic notes. I love the Freakout. It's been very fun for me. Used it in the studio. I used a lot on my last record. You can hear hear it on Pete Thorn too, on a number of solos. How much gas do you have? Says the Rover. Well, I've found myself in this position where my job, a big part of what I do is doing videos for pedals and gear and stuff. So it's almost like, so every now and then I get a gas for something, that shows up or that doesn't, that shows up in the market. And I'm like, I gotta try that. I gotta try that. I gotta try that. But I'm honestly so every week, and I'm not complaining because it's super fun. And if you would have told me this is what I was going to do when I was 14, I'd be like, what? That's the greatest thing ever. But it's like, there's new gear that I'm checking out all the time. So you almost don't have time to be like, because it's like, well, today it's part of my job, right? You got to go in and like, okay, I got to learn this thing and figure this out and figure out what it does and show it. So it's like that. But occasionally something shows up. You're like, ooh, that's just cool. And you're like, I got to get that. I want to try that. Sort of felt that way actually when I saw the video for the Cloudburst from Strymon. Because they did this great video where the guy's just playing clean. There's nothing, and then he turns that on. It just sounds like the heavens parting, and I'm like, oh, that sounds really good. Want that? And I think I am doing a video for that actually. So, yep. D Marty says just finally showing up. Happy to have you here. Did you ever have a bad monkey? I know there was a video, was it JHS did the video of the bad monkey recently? I never had it, but I know it was basically, back in the day, because now they're comparing it to Klons, but back in the day it was like Screamer. It was like, hey, you can get a Screamer for $29.95 from Digitech, I think that's how much they were. They were so cheap. And, yeah, they had a reputation for sounding really good and stuff. I didn't have one back in the day, but... Talking about head rush, says David. Have you come across the Achy E2 pedal? I have no idea what that is, my friend. I'm sorry. I don't know. Agree on the power amps. I'm building a rack, and the Marshall Valve State power amps are good, but my Marshall 9000 sounds so much better. It weighs 20 kilos. Yeah, they're heavy. I mean, like, it's interesting. The Matrix power amp sounded really good to me for guitar. There's still something about a good tube power amp, though, right? And it's just like a thing. So, but there's reasons for this, and we've done some experimenting with things and power amps. And John had some great ideas and stuff for power amps. And I do think the way to go is less tubes. I mean, if you can get a great sound out of a solid state unit that really resembles a good clean tube power. I'm not talking about driving power tubes into distortion stuff, but I'm talking about the feel of it and the overall shape of the tone and everything. If it sounds, like that sounds like just my tone, the way I want it, not some weird hard mid-range or, some of the sort of traditional solid state stuff can have some ugly sort of colors to it, so if you can get the basic color there and there's not tubes involved, I think that's great, because less tubes the better, kind of. I mean, I still love my tube amps, but it's like if I can get away with not having a tube power amp with the associated, two 12AX7s and a stereo for drivers and, at least 4 power tubes, it's like, that's great, to me, to not have to deal with all that these days. So anyways, can you get Van Halen 2 tones with Thornbuckers? I think so, the Thornbucker 2. Although, keep in mind, I think some of Van Halen 2 is probably a super distortion. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but the Shark is definitely on Light Up the Sky, for instance, I mean, definitely. I'm 98% sure that's the guitar on that, because the solo's overdubbed with the whammy bar. And, so there's, and I think in the Shark was a ceramic, so... But the tone of the Duncan rewound PAFE thing, that was probably... This is the thing about Van Halen tone, because it's such a moving target, but I do think that probably, and this is only my guess, but I think for probably the first record and the second record, you can maybe be reasonably sure that the rewound PAF thing is what was in that guitar, the tremolo guitar, the Frankenstein guitar, 9K PAF thing, and then beyond that, once you see pictures in 1980, he's got different pickups in there and stuff, so who knows, there was a double cream in it for a minute and all these different, who knows, we don't know, because it's like, this is, things were changing. So Would you be down to do Classic Rock Show USA? Yeah, and they're talking about it. I mean, and they did do it once, well before I ever played with those guys. They came over here around 2018 or 17 and did a tour, kind of East Coast, I think. So, and it went pretty good, I think. So, but they're talking about it, and I would like to do it. So I always have fun with those guys. They're my friends, and it's really fun. It's a fun set list, and it's good times. So. If they want to go to Europe or if they want to go to America, no, I'd be down. The thing is, like, as you probably noticed, my YouTube output's low right now because I've been away for almost 3 months, right? So it's like I just need to balance my life because I don't want to screw up what I have here. I've got a good thing going here, so I need the balance. That's the only thing. So, and that's okay, I'll be able to. I just need to do a better job of it, actually. That's my. So I got to get heavy into, put out the video for the amp too. I got this video for this Ironheart pedal amp coming out here, and then a bunch more to do over the next month. So, and of course NAMM is next month, so a bunch of stuff coming for that, etc., etc. I'm still pretty far back in the chat, aren't I? Jeez. I'm gonna head down in the chat and see. What do you drink? I drink a lot of coffee. And I like wine, and I like cider, and I like tequila. And I like this smoothie. And sparkling water. John says the only thing slowing a Pete Sig pedal from us is current availability or lack of silicone devices and parts. So, that may be a hint that we worked on something. We worked on something very cool, actually. But it just kind of got sort of shelved for a little while and stuff. Because we work on things all the time. And it's fun. We like it. Dirty Town 2, says Todd Roy. I am thinking of calling my next record Pete Thorn 3. Because that should just be a thing, right? And maybe I'll go all the way to Pete Thorn 4, because that's what Led Zeppelin did. If they can do it, why not? What do I think of Schecter guitars? I don't know that much about them, to be honest, because the company is, it's a completely different thing than it was in the 80s. I loved in the 80s the kind of kit guitar, that whole thing. And of course, the Pete Townsend model was like, the idea of a telly with two humbuckers and all that is ingrained in my brain as being such a cool guitar. Because right when I was getting into, that was when I started really listening to music, 81, 82, when I was getting into guitar. And that was the Who was my number one thing right off the bat. And that guitar was what Pete was playing at the time. So my earliest memories of, getting into guitar and stuff and cool guitars was actually like a Schecter, it's kind of interesting. And I also Knopfler playing them and stuff, so they were really cool. And I believe John will tell you, his early days of building, they were using parts from them. And John wasn't, if you're still here, I don't even know if you're still here, but wasn't Tom Anderson there? Didn't he work at Schecter? It's kind of interesting. Okay. Some super chats, some stuff to get to. John says, this is great having you here, John. Class D has a wrong damping for tube response. Creates an anti-impedance curve, dropping bass and high end when teamed with guitar speakers, which is kind of, would explain, what I hear is mids, clinical. Class D hard, yes. Yeah, I hear this mid-range thing that's just kind of hard and right in my face. But, these guys, through probably some modeling stuff, and it's probably digital on this guy, they've got this switch here, power amp response. On this guy, you can't even turn it off. So, on the amped 1, you can go just normal Class D. On this amped 2 pedal, you've got a switch to go from EL84 to 34 to 6L6, which must be some modeled curve. So I do want to do some experiments with their box, because I do think it's cool that they, it's, if you can make something that sounds as good, and I don't care if it's modeling or whatever, so it is what it is. But I haven't really gotten into that with their device. I do want to see what it sounds like. I'm always interested, you know, in researching what people are doing. So, yeah. All right, so here you guys are talking about the fart pedal, so I know that video for the fart pedal on April 1st. That's a good idea. You, my friend, have a good idea. That's right. April 1st. I'll set a reminder for myself. March 26th. So let's say remind me on March 29th at noon to make the video for the fart pedal to be released on April 1st. Dummy. You ever do that? Talk on your phone. I do this all day long. Reminders for myself. Thank you very much, Shenanigan. Let me get on it. John's gonna get some tacos. We are on for dinner, John. We are on for dinner. If you're still here, see you in a while. Bent and solid. Yes, you are right. That's what I hear. I mean, so that was I was saying bent saddles on a Strat have a bit more air to them and a bit more like overtone kind of harmonics, and then the steel saddles have more of a fundamental. That's what I hear. That's what I hear. Okay. Here's a super chat from Javier. What's up, man? Share some love about the Shure Hedgehog. So, yeah, the Hedgehog is a terrific amplifier. There's one sitting right here that John designed to be loosely D style, you know, I think. And it's not a 2-channel amp, but it does have an overdrive circuit that you can switch in and out. So for all intents and purposes, it kind of functions like a 2-channel amp, even though you're just sort of switching an overdrive circuit in and out on the same channel. But you can get a ton of tones out of it, long story short. It's interesting because they have, I'm not sure if, I don't have a power cable plugged into it right now, but there's all these switches here for bright, boost, mid, deep, right? And then effects of stuff, turning the overdrive on and off. And the state of all these switches can be stored. You've got a 4-button foot switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, basically, and you can store the states of these switches. So it's almost like having 4 presets. And when I did a video for it, if you want to see it, just search my name on YouTube and Shure Hedgehog, and you'll find my video, and you'll see how I did it. And I remember this is years ago that I did it. It's been out for a while, but the 4 sounds all the way from clean to clean and brighter to a rhythm crunch to a lead sound. And you can do all of that easily with this. And I would say it's a more American style gain. It's a big fat single note kind of thing, but it gets a nice overdrive. I mean, think, if you're into Dumbly, that kind of thing, that big brawny kind of fat, not Marshall and sort of the thinner, sort of more aggressive sounds, a bit warmer, fatter kind of sound, that you get out of it. And it's 50 watts, 606s. It's got a really great effect loop in it that you can either use in parallel or in series. So that's really nice and properly buffered and all that stuff. And it's just a terrific amp for somebody that wants an American style amp that isn't you're probably not going to play metal through it. But it's one of Ian Thornley's favorite amps. I know that. Yeah. Chris says and hey, thanks very much for the super chat there, Javier. I really appreciate that, and I'm glad you liked that amp. I do too. Got in late as Pete talked about playing live with an Aura. So the Aura was fantastic live. Talk about a guitar that stays in tune great and is just a pleasure and looks amazing and is, basically your favorite guitar from Kalamazoo with all the problems fixed. My niece Hurt says the fart pedal doesn't kill the gas. It makes the gas. Anyways, so it was a pleasure to have this prototype that John lent me for the road. I took one of them out. It's not my guitar; it's John's guitar, but it belongs to the company. But one of the prototypes for the 100 that were built, they let me take out, and it was terrific. Just terrific. Let's see here. And do you think the new Digitech company will come out with modeling and capturing amps and processors? I mean, probably. Probably everybody's going to, it seems like, these days. It would seem. Yeah. Ian says his gas has been bad recently. Bought a ton of pedals last month. What did you get? What did you get? That's what's so great about tube amps. They bloom. They do. Yeah. There's a lot going on with tube amps. Beyond just the tube thing or driving a tube and the compression and all that and the saturation and it's the damping and the certain response that they have due to it being a tube amp. That's so different from a solid state amp. So it's just very musical. Yeah. Zigbert says that I believe you're talking about the Bad Monkey here. It's a screamer type circuit with the addition of separate bass and treble controls. Right. Yeah. Kind of like the what was it called? The Bondi Sick Ass was basically a Klon with bass and treble. So just a little bit more versatile in the tone control department. Yeah. Speculation on Michael Anthony Singer for a new project with Phil X. Are they actually doing a project, or did they just do a jam? Let's see. Any thoughts on the Shure GLX D16 Plus digital wireless system? Well, are you talking about this? My thoughts will be coming soon because I have one here to make a video of. But I already know, it's going to be great and very simple. I basically just opened it up before I was going on tour because I wasn't able to get to it. And it's so simple and kind of elegant the way it's all, it's just an easy wireless. It's going to be a plug and play kind of thing. So yeah, my thoughts are Shure makes great wireless, and it's my favorite wireless on earth. And so I'm looking forward to getting into that one. But I've been using the Axion on tour now for a couple of years, and I adore it. Yeah. Let's see here. I guess my biggest concern with modelers and captures is how natural is the feedback response compared to my real ones. I was able to get great feedback and kind of natural sound, I would say, out of my Quad Cortex rig that I used last year with Five for Fighting, which I'll probably use again this year. We'll see. I haven't fully decided that yet, but it just depends on kind of how we're touring and stuff. But I have a tour coming up with them soon, in a couple months. It seemed to be great. Like it responded really good. I will say that I made a capture of, this is the craziest amp you could probably try and do this with, but I did try and make a capture with the train wreck that I had here for a minute, just to see how it would respond. And it had the tone color basically right, but it wasn't the same alive thing as the actual amp. It got close, and it was really cool if you did a capture through a cabinet and microphones, the basic color was there and everything. But the magic of a train wreck and a comet and all that is the feedback that happens when you've got an actual cabinet in the room and all that stuff. It's not like, you can't, they sound great. It's a great sound, but it's not that different than some other amps. If you're going to use a model, say in the axe effects of a comet or of a train wreck, it's not the same as like being in the room with an actual train wreck. Like, yeah, okay, the color might be there or the tone or whatever, but the beauty, if anybody's ever tried one of those amps, is the way that you play a note and it turns into a 3, like instantly, because there's so much. I don't know if it's like the amount of high end that's in the circuit, like the way that the amp is, the topology or whatever, the amplifier or what it is, but they are so alive that it's crazy. And all that magic that happens with a cabinet that's kind of up to gig volume and everything is incredible. And so I will say that when I tried to capture it and then I ran the capture from the quad through a power amp into the guitar cabinet, it's not quite the same. It doesn't do that thing exactly. It's really good, but it's not. That's when where you might notice the difference less, like with a metal amp or something, and you do a capture and like, wow, it sounds really close. Like actually it's really cool, But with a less distorted edge of breakup or crunchy amp that has all that harmonic stuff that's really amazing. It was a big challenge to throw at it, and I will say I noticed more of a difference then. Yeah. to me. Of course, you already know this is Fender 1960 Custom Shop, but with the 3 channels on the PT15IR, when the channels are set up correctly, it's the perfect amp. You're clean, your rhythm, and your lead. All you need. Thank you, my friend. That's what we were trying to do. Thank you, thank you. Let's see here. Okay. Have you ever needed to recreate an iconic guitar tone from scratch? Non-EVH. I mean, sure, yeah. I mean, I do it all the time. You just have to listen to it and then draw from your bag of tricks. I don't know how else to describe it. I'll give you an example. I mean, I had to make the Let's Dance guitar sound recently to play at a benefit that I did in Palm Springs, and with Josh Homme singing from Queens of the Stone Age. So we did Let's Dance, and I had to make that dun, 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 dun. I didn't play the Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff. Brian Ray did that. I played the Nile parts. Dang, 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 dang. You know, the delay guitar. And yeah, Strat, you know, I used my signature guitar, so neck pickup, my Sir. And I used the PT15, compression, maybe EQ'd a little bit, and then recreated a delay in the, I guess I probably used the timeline. Yeah, I used the timeline with a certain delay, pattern delay that was the right one for that part. And, you know, you just go for it, and you go back and forth with the record and try and get it as close as you can. Another one that comes to mind is the intro to the Eagles, One of These Nights, which is multi-tracked harmony, you know, 3-part harmony at least. And so I used a harmonizer, I used the H9, and I realized quickly that the intervals were different between the different parts. So I wasn't going to be able to only use one patch. I had to make 3 patches in the H9, and then whenever I play the intro, I've got to switch between all 3. And if you don't switch at the right time, it'll be completely out of tune. The interval will be wrong. It's going to sound terrible, but you know, when they would play it live, when the Eagles did it, they just go, you know, and then you know, the part in the middle. So right, that they go like that, and they just play fourths with that's the way Felder would do it and stuff. But I actually have the harmony, so I'm going right like that, doing with the harmonizer with the correct intervals and stuff like that, you know. So, and it, to me, it sounded more like right, you know, than even when the Eagles would do it live. And I played it with Don like that, and I remember the first time I hit the patch and going down with a full 3-part harmony, and he looked at me and he goes, "Yeah, baby." I was like, it's just a simple little thing, you know, and it's just a harmony, you know. It's not, but you get this is part of what I love, you know, about guitars. It's really fun for me, and recreating stuff like that, and why it served me well as a sideman, because that kind of thing for an improviser or somebody that's into blues, or you know, they might find that stuff boring, you know, like, oh, getting in and programming an H9 to do a 3-part harmony and having to come up with 3 patches to just play, you know, 8 bars of music. But for me, it's like a fun challenge. I was like, I'm gonna see if I can make this sound like the record, you know. And that's the key. Another one is Black Hole Sun. I remember doing Black Hole Sun, and the first time I played it with Chris, the rotary sound on the slide intro, okay, that's one sound with more drive and a different speed on the rotary sound, and then the next part comes in, and it's very clean, but there's a mid-range bump to it and kind of a honkiness. And I'm talking about the arpeggios. Dang, 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 dang. That part, right? It's got a beautiful reverb. There's maybe some delay blended in, but there's a beautiful roominess to it, and there's a certain mid-range color to it, and it's cleaner than the intro with the slide. So I did 2 different patches for both those parts, and then I would play the intro on the slide, drop the slide, and just drop it on the floor, and then come in on the next part and do the patch change. And I remember doing it with Chris, and him looking back at me and going, "It sounds exactly like the record," you know. And it was a good thing, you know. And I was like, "Thank you," you know. And it was like I spent a lot of time on it trying to get it right. And with that rig, the initial rig that I did it on was completely different than what I ended up doing it on 3 years later. But my philosophy would still be the same. I remember I was using a Line 6 roto machine, and I don't remember what verb I used in the beginning, but running into the divided by 13 amp I was using at the time, that was probably an FTR 37, so a Fender amp, and with some, I can't remember the reverb I used, but something with, whatever. And I did it that way. The way I ended up doing it was with I had a completely different rig 3 years later with an Axe Effects running wet, dry, wet, and all this different stuff. And I remember doing the rotary in the Axe Effects, spending a long time on the patch trying to get it. But my philosophy would always be the same. Listen to the record and then just try and get inside it with the gear that you have, I guess. Try and nail it, as close as you can. So, yeah. And it's a fun challenge for me, and I guess that's why I like the job of sideman stuff. Is trying to recreate some of those classic parts on records is really fun for me. Yeah. Okay. So about 1:47, I'm going to go till 2 p.m. and then I'm going to get to work on some video stuff that I got to get out. What pedal on your board do you think you use the most? Probably on this tour, it was the Unobtainium. That and the Woodshed compressor from Sir. I always got a compressor on in my clean sounds, so I'm using that. But the Unobtainium came in really handy with the 2 channels, the steel string singer side for fattening up a clean a little bit and getting a little bit of a beef edge to my clean sound. And then also on any lead I'm playing, I've got the Klon style drive of the Unobtainium, the other side on, in front of my dirty amp. So that pedal came in super handy. Yeah. There's a super chat from Andy. Sorry. Michael Anthony must know what pickups I'd use and which guitars for that matter. I doubt it. I don't think so. I don't think he would know from one day to the next. And I don't think Alex would probably know or care either. To be honest, the guy that would know is Rudy Laren, his tech. I think Alex and Michael would probably say, he was always messing with things. He'd come in every day and, try different things. I mean, he'd just work on stuff at they'd probably rehearse at Dave's place in Pasadena, I think, right? And he lived up on Las Lunas and, just sit there in his bedroom and probably solder in different things, show up at rehearsal. They wouldn't know. Like, hey, did you get a new pickup in your guitar? It'd be like, they wouldn't, I doubt it, But Rudy was around from the early days and Rudy would know, I think, so he'd be the guy that actually, between him and Don Landay, that's where all the bodies are buried. I think they know any of the really interesting stuff. So, yeah, alrighty. Well, there's another super chat. Thank you guys for all the super chats today. I really appreciate it. I do. You guys are talking about Schecters here, so I'm still behind in the chat, aren't I? Got a Schecter P-Bass from 1982. Super cool Nitro Gold top. Wow, that's cool. Nitro Gold top P-Bass. So is it like a bound? Interesting. I'd love to see what that looks like, actually. It sounds like really cool. Do you have a favorite P90 brand or style guitar? I mean, a late 50s or early 60s Les Paul Jr. or SG or Special. My favorite one that I've heard was the fellow that owns Scumbag Speakers. He's got an early 60s SG Special with 2 that are non-original, actually. They're Wagner pickups in it, but I love that guitar. Just the guitar sounds like it's a beautiful SG Special with 2 black P90s in it, and that guitar just sounded ripping. And I actually played it, I think, in the SL68 video I did in 2012 because he lent it to me for a little while. What a neck on that guitar. Certain Gibsons from like 64, 63 have a wide neck that's not too thin but not too fat, and it's so ripping. Like, you can just shred on those guitars, and they're like from the early 60s. It's crazy, but they had this amazing neck. And that guitar had probably one of the best examples of that style neck that I've ever heard. So Emily Hopkins' review of the fart pedal is excellent. I want to see that. She's a harpist. Okay, I'd like to see that. Surfer B says, so Sir still hiring? I believe so. Yeah, they put out an ad a little while ago saying they were looking for some people. So hit them up. Yeah. If you're okay with recommendations on non-sur amps, trying to decide between the Pink Taco version 2 20 watt and the Little Sister 20 watt combo. Marshall Van, good for pedals. Well, the Little Sister's more dark, a little darker, a little more, classic rock gain, and the Pink Taco is hot rod Jose. So think about them that way. Although there's some crossover too, and you can get one to clean up and the other one to be dirtier, whatever. But that's your, if you want Led Zeppelin and, maybe up to AC/DC tones. I mean, it's got more gain than that, but, the Little Sister maybe be the one, and the Pink Taco is going to be a bit more rock, which it's a really good amp for, in my opinion, I think. So, yeah. What else we got? Just looking through the chat. Gonna move down in the chat. I got obviously a super chat to get to there, so I won't forget that. Jim says maybe John could design a solid-state power amp that sounds and reacts like a tube power amp return for modeling amps. Maybe so. Actually, I have a lot of confidence. Isn't that wireless system on same frequency ranges as common Wi-Fi and thus susceptible to interference and dropouts? You're asking about the Shure system. Well, it's brand new, and it works not only at the 2.3 gigahertz or whatever, but 5 point something range, and it's Shure. So they would have thought of that. I mean, they're like pretty on it, and I haven't had any problems with dropouts with Shure systems, even down to, even their cheapest one. I was using a competitor at a show that I did in Florida a while back, and it would not work. And I was like, damn it, I'm going to have to go on a cable. And I didn't have a cable that was long enough. It was a nightmare. So I ended up using the Shure that was like $2.99. That was like an analog Shure basic system. Worked fine. It worked good. Does it sound as good as my Axion? No, but it was good, It's that the gig I did with Mitch Malloy a few years ago, where there's plenty of clips of me playing live, and you can hear the sound on it. That's me using a Shure that I just had to use that day. That is the lowest level wireless that they make, and I hadn't rehearsed with it. I didn't know what it was going to be like, and I used it, and it was great. So Shure wireless is, they've been in the game a long time, and this new version of this pedal, the GLXD, is, it's their update. So I'll put it through the paces here. I'll do a test and walk around, go way outside and walk around, see what happens. I'm in a busy neighborhood here with a lot of stuff going on, and so we'll see. No wireless is completely immune from problems, but I bet it's pretty damn good. What did you like and what did you dislike about being overseas? I got really ill, so that's hard. Touring can be hard on a bus with a lot of people, especially in winter when it's cold, and illness just happens, it seems. So I've come to realize that every time I've been over there to do that tour, I've gotten quite sick. So that's hard. And it just happens, You're on a bus, you're in a petri dish with people. You're so close to people. You're all sleeping in one area, all the bunks are like in a big hallway. And if somebody's in there coughing all night and stuff, it's not like the bus curtain is gonna, it's like it just gets into the air, and and people get sick. So that's the hardest part. What do I like? The camaraderie and the people, and it's nice to go to a different place and play. And, I love travel still. And, England's a cool place in many ways still, and there's lots of fun stuff going on over there. So I enjoy, simple things, like it's Sunday roast culture, going to a pub and having a Sunday roast. It's delicious. Because I grew up a bit like that. That was my... being a kid of that heritage, British heritage and stuff. My grandparents were very British, and we used to do Sunday roast. That was what we did on Sunday nights. Go over to Grandma's house and have, Yorkshire puddings and roast beef, and it was like. So I guess it reminds me of that, and being there. That's a big part of it. Being in England is that tie back to my family history. I think is familiar, So, anyways. Have you ever jammed using a modeler and drummer with electric drums? Yes. Is there any lag? Well, it's not so much about the lag. What the hard part is the drums not coming from the drums. They're coming out of a monitor in your face. It's weird. Like it's very different. Ben Tom says it's like porn being versus being with a real woman. Maybe a little bit. Yeah. It's just weird with the drums coming out of a, if it's only in-ears and stuff. I mean, and if you're not that close to the drummer on a stage anyway, maybe it doesn't matter if you're just using in-ears. But it's a very different way to make music than how I grew up doing it in a garage with noisy amps and drums, you know? So it's just different. You can get used to anything, I guess. But what's my opinion on the EVH heads? Don't know that much about them. I recently had one here for something recently, but I liked, I will say, my original 6L6, the one that came out first. The blue channel was really cool, and I used it on tour, that amp. So that one was really cool. I basically used that one channel. The red channel was really hot, and I maybe used it for a thing or two, but not that much. It was mainly that blue channel, which to me sounded like a pretty good approximation in a channel switching amp of the old Van Halen sound. So that one I really liked. Okay, what else? I'm looking down through, let's see, through the chat. There's still that super chat I got to get to there. Okay, that's a good question, Jack. Given that I don't know how a model or IR capture actually works, if so much sound is in the hands, doesn't the player doing the capture matter a lot? Are you buying some of the hand sound? When you do a capture, it doesn't really have anything to do with you playing. What it does is it runs a series of tones and test tones and sounds out through the amplifier, all the way from very quiet to very loud. And lots of, there's these pulsing sounds that happen, and sweeps all the way from 20 to 20K, and different things that come out through the amplifier. So it's testing the amplifier and its response all the way dynamically from very, very quiet to a full, level going through it, and then with full frequencies, right? Because it's trying to capture what the thing can do at any given, with whatever input you're putting into it. So you playing through it has nothing to really do with there's no playing involved, for instance, when you're doing a quad cortex capture. It's just test tones and things going on through the amplifier. So they used to have a refinement thing where you would play through it a little bit, but now they've eliminated that. They say it's not necessary anymore. And I think in a Kemper, I don't know if that's been eliminated too, but in a Kemper there would be that stage where it would do its capture, and then you'd play a bit more through it or whatever, just play big blocky chords and lots of noise basically through it on your guitar. But like I said, they've eliminated that from the thing with quad cortex altogether. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. Brian asked a question, but I already answered that. Here's a Peter. Hey man, as always, great Sunday live, and for those that arrive late, videos this week. The video, Laney Ironheart video coming next. I've got a 20-watt amplifier from Karsten's that I have to make a video of, and that should be really interesting. It's kind of the Billy Corgan model. So that's happening. And then what else am I doing? I've got that Shure Wireless to do, and I've got a ton of other stuff to get to, but there's a couple. So, and I also want to make a video on that Music Man EVH guitar that came my way that I haven't told the story of really yet. That you may have seen a few pictures of me with. So I have that guitar, and I want to make a couple. I want to make a video with that. So and tell the story of the guitar and stuff, and also make it a little bit based around that period of the EVH, Soldano H3000, SD 3000, all the stuff in that particular period of 92 or so, Van Halen, what was going on then. And we'll wrap it up with that guitar, and so that should be fun. Hopefully people will like that. Yeah. When tuning in a speaker cabinet, do you rely more on the microphone sound? Thank you, Peter, as well, for the super chat. Sorry. Do you rely more on the microphone sound or what you hear with your actual ear live when tuning in a speaker cabinet? if a speaker cabinet sounds good to me standing right in front of it or on top of it or all the different things, then I'm cool with just putting a mic on it and finding the right position. I don't think about the mic first. If a cabinet, you want it to sound not too boomy or not too bright or piercing or anything. Just like when you're picking speakers for it and stuff, or listening to the cabinet, like when we did the we were coming up with a PT 100 212 cabinet. We tried a couple different sizes, and I remember like going, this one's a little boomy. I don't know, like let's size it down a little bit, and then we would change the dimensions until we got something that we really liked, and then we would pick speakers that we narrowed it down to and got all that great. It has to sound good on its own, and then you put a microphone in front of it, and hopefully it records well. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Eddie constantly changing stuff probably bugged the rest of the band. I know me constantly changing guitars and amps used to drive my bass player nuts. I remember, Eddie talking about how he used to play a Strat, and then they'd go, nah, that guitar sounds too thin, and then he'd play his 335, and David go, nah, it looks like Chuck Berry, like we're a rock band or whatever, because he loved it. Evidently, he loved his 335 that he then took pickup out of, and he also, I remember Eddie telling me, actually, like we were talking about 335s once over text. And he told me a story about how he destroyed his 335, probably that one. That he said, "Oh man, I ruined so many guitars." I remember him saying that he took a belt sander to it and totally screwed up the top, like the carve on the top, because he was trying to get the finish off it, probably, and repaint it or something. But he said he took a belt sander to it and destroyed it. That was probably like a 62 or 63 335. But he's, that's how he learned, was, screwing up guitars and whatever he knew about to get to where he got, where he could bolt a guitar together and get the amazing music that he did, that was all part of it. So it's cool. But I think he was just constantly tinkering, and that's what we love about the guy was this, we got to keep in mind, he created that, everybody just kind of played. There wasn't a lot of tinkering going on. And then he created that whole super Strat tinkering, pickups in and out, paint it yourself. Like, he did that. Nobody else did it. He was the guy that started the craze of doing all that. It's so cool, And it was so much fun as a kid to go like, oh, wow, I can make my own, like, I can do whatever I want. I can, like, bolt a neck on this thing and do this, put a different pickup in. And, you could saw a piece out of it if you wanted to. I mean, he created the whole, the vibe of, Steve Vai, then doing his green guitar with the cutaway cutout and then putting a monkey grip in it and all that stuff and like all the crazy colors and all that. I don't know that would have happened without Eddie first coming and being the guy that set the tone, set for that. So it created a whole thing that I just remember having so much fun with in the 80s, that whole, be unique and make the guitar your own, kind of do your own thing. It was really fun. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Probably got to get going here pretty quick, guys. It's 2:04, so I should split. But, let's see, just answer a couple more things here. Are you guys talking about, like, you guys are making taco and fart jokes and the, it's kind of the theme today, what with this around, I guess, It's probably time to go as well because of that. Anybody else? Let's see here. Anybody else? I'm still pretty far back in the chat, as usual. But, do you guys remember when I started doing this? When I started doing this, before I would go live, I would do Q&A. And I would ask you questions like on Facebook, and then you would send me questions, and I would make a video answering your questions. This was before live streaming became a real thing. And it was such a nightmare because I would like do 10, and then I'd get like 500 questions like a week, and then like I could only answer like a few, and I went like, this just isn't efficient. So it's so much better now. But my point is, I still don't get to them all in the chat. But that's what I did at the beginning. Like that was like 6 years ago, It's like, there's got to be another way. And then I tried the live stream thing. Oh, wait a minute, this is amazing. This is so much better. So it's just kind of funny, but just remembered that. Yeah. What's the thing you have to be careful with when using the Boss Tube expander? Just don't turn up the farthest to the left knob. I tend to leave all the way down. The resonance one. It's got 4 positions, so leave it all the way to the left. Or if you absolutely must, maybe the next click up, but I wouldn't, you know. That's just me. Your mileage may vary. Maybe you'll, with your particular amp, run it a certain way for years and never have a problem, but I tend to err on the side of I want my amp to see proper loading, like it would when it plugged into a cabinet. Exactly like, or as close as to as possible, what it looks like, at least if it's plugged into a cabinet. If not, a fixed load is the next best thing, I guess. So, won't hurt your amp. Yeah. Ian says one reason why I could never have an original burst, this is talking about the parts guitar thing, or the, you know, screwing with guitars, custom guitars, I'd have trouble resisting the urge to F with it. And Eddie obviously did, because he went out and bought a couple bursts, and then within like a year, you saw those guitars with, like, you know, the neck pickup removed. So he pulled the PAF out and probably stuck it. Maybe that was the, you know, when I think about it, there was a double cream in the bridge of the Frankenstein for a while. That was probably the friggin' PAF that came out of the neck of the Les Paul, you know. Would make sense. You know, around women and children first. Because that's when he got those guitars. You know, he bought 2, I think a 58 and a 59, or 58 and a 60, or something like that. Something like that. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. But, yeah. Good times, good times. Well, guys, I should split. This was super fun. Next week, I'll try and be here on time and not be so screwy with the time. But I just had those little technical problems. It took me 20 minutes or so to iron out when I first got in here. So sorry. But next time will be around the usual time, around 11:45 a.m. And I'll see you next week. And you guys are the best. Good to see y'all. Lauren says, I remember how humble and embarrassed you were when you were getting super chats when they first came out. Yeah, it wasn't because people were like, he charges to answer questions. I'm like, no, it's just something that they turned on. But I do appreciate it. It keeps the coffee flowing around here. I don't ask for it, but I don't turn it down either, you know? Delicious. Appreciate all you guys. And thank you for being here week after week. Love you all. I'll see you next Sunday. And yeah, I'll try and kick up some cool video content this week. Everybody have a terrific week. And be safe out there. Be nice to one another. Take it easy.